Hello, I am David. How are you, David? What would you like to share with the group this week? Oh, I'm fine. Thanks. This week, I went to work. I slayed a couple of minor dragons. I had blueberry smoothies. I took all of my vitamins. I went for a walk and a bike ride, and somehow life still feels pointless and empty. So I guess before I get into the actual subject matter of this self therapy session or whatever these are becoming, I wanted to talk about at least something for me that was a little bit lighter and fun, I guess. So over the past month or so, I guess it would have been end of June, beginning of July, is when I went down the iPod rabbit hole, and I refurbished two iPods recently, one for myself and the other for my daughter. And in doing so, replacing the original old hard drives on the devices with the updated adapter and SD cards. On one of the old hard drives, I had found some music left over by whoever owned the device before. And there was a playlist of the Shins, an indie pop music band that started in the 90s in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And in the playlist, I think there are 5 albums in total, with all the songs from the different Shins albums. And I had never heard the Shins before, but over the past 3 or 4 weeks, I guess I've been playing the albums just kind of here as background music over the past few weeks. And then I purchased, these are 4 of the albums from the Shins in CD form. And I think probably this one, Heartworms, and Len, Port of Morrow, are probably the best 2. In my opinion anyway. And I ended up liking the Shins, and so did my daughter. So that was at least something a little bit fun we get to share together in discovering a new band that we both like. I put a bunch of other songs on her iPod, hundreds of songs, and she doesn't admit to liking anything other than the Shins, which I think might not be entirely truthful, because I've caught her listening to Tom Petty a few times, so, but she will not admit to liking Tom Petty, so. Anyway, to get into, I guess, the topic I actually want to talk about, which I guess it would be kind of becoming consumed with something, with trying to win at something and then failing at getting the complete and total victory you had at least hoped for. And then kind of the concept, I guess, of living for being angry. So, in kind of getting into that, I just wanted to start with a quote from Alice in Wonderland. "My dear, here we must run as fast as we can, just to stay in place. And if you wish to go anywhere, you must run twice as fast as that." And that line from Alice in Wonderland, I think about often over the past year or two, and how life has been much like that for me. Running as fast as you can just to stay in place. And so I guess I want to talk about the concept of becoming consumed with the pursuit of a goal, so much so that it becomes the reason you get up every day. It's all you think about. It becomes the reason you live. And why am I talking about this? Because when my ex-wife left with our kids one day, I was devastated. Before then, I had never had a panic attack before. But for 2 months or around there, following the time that my ex-wife left with our kids, I had panic attacks. I haven't had a panic attack in 5 years or more now. And it was probably, at least for me, the worst time in my life, at least so far. And I felt like I was faced with a choice. Do I let despair and heartache grip me and just kind of be crushed by life? Or do I get angry and let my anger burn inside of me so much so that the fire from my own anger would keep me going? And that's how I would describe it anyway. Since then, I've kind of run into a lot of people that act like anger is a bad thing. But for the worst parts of my life, anger kept me going where if I would have turned to anything else, I think I would have been completely lost. And I don't really know how to put that idea or reality or kind of capture what that really means and put it into words and convey it to someone. The idea that anger kept me going through the worst part of my life. I don't think anger is inherently bad, and, frankly, after all this time and reflecting on it, I think there are times in life where being driven by anger is actually warranted and a good thing, actually. So now I'm going to try and share with you my imperfect story about that concept. Being consumed with anger and living for anger and winning itself. I'm going to try and talk about my literal battle with the family court system and my fight for equal time in custody with my children. And I really, why am I doing this? I just kind of want to say it out loud at this point. But it's a difficult thing for me to say out loud. I'm not an outwardly emotional person. I don't think anyone I've ever really known in life would describe me as emotional, of all things. But through this period of my life, all anyone would seem to do is look at me and assume either something bad about me, I must be a bad person, or that I was insane or emotional or maybe all of the above. And I think the details of whatever personal struggle this is or was are kind of complex and certainly absurd and have been emotionally draining. So instead of trying to delve into every kind of tedious aspect of this, I'm going to try and use a metaphor to capture my experience. So, bear with me in whatever this is. Imagine a kid who dreams of becoming a knight, someone who fights evil and stands for justice. But instead of vanquishing evil creatures and achieving grand victories, this kid finds himself struggling with an unrelenting and malevolent dragon. And this dragon symbolizes not just one battle or person, but a series of grueling challenges, frustrations, and an array of people in a system. In the end, neither the kid nor the dragon is defeated. They reach a weary stalemate, leaving the kid with a sense of emptiness and loss. This metaphor, I think, reflects my own experience, battling against an overwhelming and unyielding force, and now grappling with finding purpose in the aftermath of that struggle. And, when I was a kid, I actually wanted to be a knight. And you can't really become a knight, except maybe through some kind of a ceremonial title. And frankly, the knights of history were likely not as heroic as I would have ever imagined. So I spent my later 20s and pretty much all of my 30s, I dedicated myself to building a life I thought was ideal. I focused on working hard, learning new skills, and leading process improvement teams, trying to get a little bit better every day. I envisioned a future in a cozy farmhouse, in a rural community, where my kids could run around catching fireflies and laying out on the grass under the sky at night, looking up at the stars. I imagined having a garden, fruit trees, chickens, and a bit of land. And I actually planted 12 little fruit trees, and I think the fruit trees are all still there now, but I'm not. I was determined to shape my world to match my dreams. And for a while, it all seemed achievable. Not really grandiose dreams, just sort of a nice little life in the country where my children could grow up in a safe environment. But everything unraveled with divorce. And I felt like I was thrust unwillingly into an endless legal battle for custody. And I had really believed that justice would ultimately prevail, that logic and reason would win. But after my battles with the family court system and my ex-wife, I lost all faith in that belief in justice and logic and reason. It felt like fighting an inescapable dragon, one that seemed undefeatable. And despite my perseverance or persistence, and I think I was very persistent, at one point, the judge in the matter used the actual verbatim wording of, "David is very persistent in his quest to see his children." Such a bizarre statement to read in a court document. But anyway, despite my persistence, I could not defeat the dragon. Not entirely. But I did manage to wound it. And I wounded it enough that it left me alone and allowed me to walk away with a little bit more than I had had before. And even today, I mean, I'm like 5 or 6 years later from the beginning of this, and maybe 2.5, 3 years from an ending of some sort. I'm not sure really who is more surprised by all of this, either me or the dragon. I had essentially spent years at this point, in my mind, fighting this epic struggle with this undefeatable beast. And I suppose if you're on the outside looking in, you might view it as something more like Don Quixote tilting at windmills, but maybe with a more tragic twist to it. But since all of the legal battles have mostly ended and died down at this point, I haven't gardened anymore, and I don't really find joy in the things that I once did. Without the dragon to fight, life is, oddly, emptier. The struggle against the dragon had become my main focus and motivator in life, and after a while, I started to like fighting the dragon, even when there were losses. The constant fight and conflict somehow became enjoyable. And now with the dragon gone, and without the anger really fueling me anymore, I just feel kind of empty. Something like Captain Ahab, but without the whale, and without the dramatic final ending. And talking about these experiences in realistic terms is challenging. Because for me, they're deeply personal and emotional, and the legal details are lengthy and very absurd. The dragon metaphor helps me in some way express what this struggle felt like, and the idea of not achieving the definitive victory that I had hoped for. It's a very tough pill to swallow, accepting that I didn't get a full victory, a full win, complete justice. And I personally really dislike failure. It eats away at me like a festering wound that will not heal. And somehow in this I failed. No matter how much you win, if you don't really get all of it, you feel like a failure. Something like Edgar Allan Poe's Telltale Heart, where this thing, this unfinished business you have lurking under the floorboards, and this intense sound of a beating heart in the back of your head, reminding you that you failed. You don't get anywhere intentional in life by wandering around aimlessly. You need to have a goal, some kind of a target to aim at, and try and make incremental, steady progress toward actually attaining your goal. These are things I know and have known, but falter in doing anymore lately. In losing something you wanted, no matter how much you find other pursuits or hobbies or distractions, all of those things, they're just an unsatisfying substitute or facsimile for the thing you actually wanted, no matter how much you try to focus on other things or positives or being successful in some other category. Not getting what you wanted sucks. And the truth is, in life, nobody really gives a shit anyway. Nobody's coming to save you. you have to be your own best advocate and save yourself somehow. Under this kind of thin veneer of civilization, the stark brutality of real life exists anyway, no matter how much we stand on the shoulders of giants. And that stark brutality is always just kind of waiting there for you to slip up and fall. So after all of this kind of stuff, at the end of all these legal battles and whatever, and kind of sit here looking at the Shin CDs and my refurbished iPod and think about how something as simple as sharing music in a new band with my daughter does bring some kind of joy back into my life. Having some kind of small moment to connect with and remind me that, despite all of the stuff, all of the battles and everything, there are still small, worthwhile things which make up your life that are worth living for. And if connecting with your kid over an old music player comes at the cost of fighting some insurmountable dragon, then so be it. Bring on the dragons. So the dragon may be gone, but I'm still here, trying to find some kind of purpose in the aftermath of the past few years' struggle. And I hope that maybe the answer is not in grand victories and being able to completely and totally defeat every challenge that comes your way, but instead that small everyday moments that help you connect with people around you that matter will continue to remind me that there is some kind of beauty in life to be cherished and enjoyed, even if it's just simple things like discovering a new band to enjoy. And I try and, hold on to that with some kind of hope that even after you feel empty and broken with the battles in life you go through, that you can still find some kind of a reason, some little moment of peace amidst the chaos and wreckage of all of the fights you've been through, and try and be content with that, with the good that you can salvage from the unintended wreckage you have been through, I suppose. So, that's all I have. Hopefully you found it interesting or something. Or look into the Shins and find some song you like. But I'm David, and that's all I have this week. Have a good day.